Hi folks, Mark here and welcome to my thoughts on Outward, which is a curious combination of a classic RPG with some survival elements. Now I know what you're going to ask, is it worth it? And this is kind of a mixed response from me because it is and it isn't. If you've got a buddy to play with, you're going to play co-op, because yes, this game has co-op mode, which is one of the best things about it. It's probably worth it if you like RPGs. If you're going to play solo though, I would kind of steer away from it because this has some flaws with which I'm going to explain in just a moment. But first, if you want to see my entire playthrough of Outward, then you can just check on the link to my second YouTube channel down below, or if you want to see me play more games like this live on Twitch, then just check out the link there too, and hopefully I'll see you over on the stream soon. So Outward's story basically pictures you as the survivor of a shipwreck. No, a penniless pauper survivor of a shipwreck. You've got absolutely nothing to your name, and it's kind of your fault the ship got wrecked. Well, it isn't, but you're getting the blame for it, and you owe a favour to the tribe, and that's where the game pitches you. You can follow 3 story arcs in the game, one of each for 3 different factions, but only 1 per playthrough. So if you want to do the other 2 story arcs, you're going to have to start with a new character and start all over again. But right at the start of the game, you can either follow the story arcs, follow the quests you're given, or you can just go wandering off into the wide open world. Yes, this is open world. You can go anywhere, you can do whatever you want, you can explore anything. That's probably the best side of the game, but be warned, you can just go anywhere, even into areas that are far too difficult for you. You can get into trouble at the start of the game. And there's no levels in this game. There's no experience gain at all. You just basically get better gear, explore different things, learn new abilities, but you never actually level up, so to speak. You just get bigger and harder and better at stuff. And there's also the survival element to this as well. You've got to worry about food, water, the weather, sleep, energy, the temperature, all these sort of things, which all has an effect. It all sort of adds to the atmosphere of the game, but some of it is a bit of a takeaway from the game as well, which we'll explain later. So let's quickly talk about the questing that there is in this game, and I'm going to say it is very, very basic. A lot of the quests are kind of like fetch quests, or just walk over there, kill one thing, and come back quests. It's pretty basic. There are some puzzles in the game, and the puzzles are pretty good where they are. I'd like to see a few more of them, I have to say, but what's in there is good. But the quests are just dull. For example, the conversations you'll have with the characters that give you the quest, it's just pretty straightforward, monotonous stuff. It doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't draw you into the story. I don't feel like there's a whole lot of... There is lore of the world, but I don't feel like it really comes out in the quests that you're given. Also, there's voiceovers for some of the quest text, but not all of it. So you'll be reading the first line of text, and the computer will be speaking it back to you. However, then it just stops. And also, it doesn't always match up with what's on the screen. So I feel like that could have done better. Maybe that is going to get patched in, or maybe it already has been by now. But I turned the whole voiceovers off because it was kind of annoying and distracting. But one of the main problems with the quests, and this is a theme that you're going to see me come back to quite a bit with this game, is that they involve trekking all around the world. Often it'll be, oh, just deliver this book to this place right across the other side of the world. And you go there and you get 1 line of text, and a thank you and some paltry reward, and that's it. And you have to trek all the way back to where you just came from to get the next one to follow it up. That is a particular problem in a game with no fast travel, no mounts, and one that punishes you for sprinting, but more on that later. So combat. No RPG would be complete without combat, and there is quite a bit in this. There's a wide variety of very weird and strange monsters to find in this, and of course human NPC bandits and all sorts of things. There's a very good variety of melee weapons, one-handed, two-handed, swords, maces, clubs, spikes, spears, halberds, all sorts of weird things in there, and shields as well. There's also bows, although there's not quite a good a selection of those, and you can use magic in combat as well. But basic melee combat, one-handed and shield, by the way, is exactly where you should start as a new player. You'll have much less difficulty going out and learning the game like that, where you can block, than trying to get into ranged and more advanced combat techniques to start with. It's pretty punishing at the start of the game. Combat breaks down into really just learning the enemy's attack patterns, guessing when they're going to attack, because they don't always give you a prompt. You can kind of guess the timings from their attack patterns, but sometimes they'll just jump out of what seems like out of sequence when you were lining up an attack and catch you. And then it's just a case of responding with dodges, blocks if you've got an appropriate weapon. It gets a little bit monotonous towards the end when you feel like you've learned everything there is, but it's okay. There's also range combat, of course, with bows and guns, although the options for those are a bit more limited. And the best thing about this is you can place traps as well. In combat is a little tricky, but you can certainly do it before combat. You can line up your encounters, place as many traps as you want, and draw the enemy into them. It adds a little bit of a tactical value where you have to plan your encounter better and how you're going to draw the enemies into these spike traps and things. And I love this about the game. It's one of the best features, and it's something that I had the most fun with. For example, you can build a tripwire trap, and you can put a halberd in it. Pretty cool. You can put whatever you have to hand in these traps, and they all have different effects. So I really like that about the game. One issue I really had was some of the long animations on some actions. Dodging is one in particular, but also if you take a potion in the middle of combat, your character stands still. It seems like he takes it out of his bag, he uncorks it, he swirls it around, he smells the bouquet, and then takes a drink. It seems to take forever, during which time you've been hit and the effect's been cancelled or you're dead. And it is frustrating stuff like that. Which leads me on to death, character death. Actually, there isn't any character death in this. When you run out of hit points, you go unconscious, and you get an interesting random cutscene, kind of, that then breaks up the game. Basically, you will either awake roughly where you were with a sore head and a load of wounds. You might get rescued by a friendly hunter and taken back to town. You might just wake up in a mysterious place not knowing how you got there. It adds a bit of random variety into this, but there's a major problem with this, and that is you can awaken after a death miles away from where you just were, and most of the time all your gear is with you, unless you dropped your backpack and then ran out of a dungeon or something, or did something weird. We have had that happen. It does mean that you have a very long trek back if you want to complete the quest or go back to where you were. But this is where co-op really makes the game a lot more fun, because if one of the characters dies or goes unconscious, player 2 can resurrect them either very quickly in combat if they can dodge the monsters for long enough, or defeat the thing that just killed you and then happily resurrect you on site, and that is a lot better, and that made the game a lot more playable in my experience. So that's why I say co-op's worth it and single player not so much. Now, I also mentioned that magic is an option in the game, and it's quite an interesting and fairly complex system, but not without its problems. So you don't start the game with any magic, you don't choose any class at all, in fact. But you learn, if you want to, that is, you learn magic fairly early on in the game through a couple of quests. Now, to actually cast any spells, you have to get a mana bar. You don't start with a mana bar, and to get that you have to sacrifice health and stamina. You choose how much you sacrifice, and the amount you sacrifice is your permanent mana bar from then on. So it kind of is a compromise between a melee or ranged character and sacrificing enough of that to become a magic user, if you want to. Nearly all the spells in this game, or certainly offensive spells, rely on some sort of combination. There's a big problem with this, and it is very clunky to use magic in combat, particularly so if you were playing solo. I played co-op. I had a player who was tanking for me, which got the mob's attention, but then to cast, for example, a lightning spell, you have to cast 2 different runes to create a magic lantern. Only while the lantern is in effect, which lasts for about 3 to 5 minutes, depending on what skills you've picked, can you then cast lightning bolt, which requires another 2 combinations of runes to blast off. So you're quickly there hammering the different combinations trying to get it. If you miss a key and you don't notice and you're still trying to cast it off, you're out of sequence, nothing happens, and it gets rather confusing. It's difficult to use magic effectively in combat, but it's great when planning combat and before you just open up that attack, or if you're playing co-op. As I've said, again, the theme co-op works great. There's lots of skills in the game. The trouble is the way you do it, you have to find the correct skill trainer, and each city in the game, I think there's 4 cities, only has a limited selection of trainers with a limited selection of abilities, and there's no clue as to what abilities you will learn from the other trainers that you'll come across later in the game. It makes it very hard to plan your character out. You can learn all the basic level stuff, which is very good. There's some very useful skills in there, but you've only got 3 skill points to spend on advanced skills, and some of the better stuff requires these skill points. But until you decide how you want to go with the character, you don't know whether you should pick one of these skills from early trainers or wait and see if something better comes along later on. If you play through the game a few times, you'll have an idea. Or if you use Google to go search what you should do and where you get these skills from, that's better. But the game gives you nothing, absolutely nothing, to help you along with this when you play for the first time. And I found that it led to analysis paralysis. Oh, do I want to spend a skill point on this? I've only got 3 skill points. What if I want to do that with the character later? You can't respec in this game. You can only start new characters. So there was a bit of a problem with that. And also it involves trekking miles and miles and miles, again, to find the trainer that you want, or trekking miles and miles and miles back to the beginning if you decide that you do want that skill from the first trainer that you saw. Yeah, we're back to this trekking all over the map business, and I don't like that. So another thing that really defines this game is your inventory system, and it is a defining factor of the game, and it's also a pain in the arse factor in the game. You've always got limited inventory space. You start off with a very small backpack, which you can find bigger and better ones later on, but it's a survival game. It's an RPG. There's loot, there's crafting ingredients, there's all the food and potions and drinks that you're going to have to carry around with you everywhere, and they all take up space, and you can't carry everything you want. You will not be able to carry all the loot back from a dungeon, and you really need to, because you've got to sell this stuff. You are short on cash for training, for skills, for buying player houses. All this stuff requires money, and you can't carry the loot, you can't carry the equipment you want, you can't carry spare equipment, you can't carry food and water, you can't get everything. You've got to choose very carefully what you take. It helps again in co-op play. Yeah, I've said this before, it makes a big difference. You effectively get an extra inventory. You also get a player stash, which you put in player houses, or you don't put it there, it's in player houses. There's a problem with this. There's only so many player houses you can buy. I think it's 1 per city, but you can't have all of them. At least we couldn't on our playthrough. And the stash in there, what you put in that particular stash, stays in that house. It's not accessible from another stash in one of your other houses across the other side of the map. So again, if you trek across the continent and you find that you've left one important ingredient for crafting something, as happened to us, the only way you can get it is to trek all the way back. And it sucks. Quests often send you on long walks, which would be fine if you were going into new, unexplored areas, and sometimes you are. For the first time, that's good. But then when you go and get there, often the quests are just to walk all the way back to where you've just come from. And it's just going back over old ground. There's nothing new to see. Sometimes mobs, and there's not many out in the wild world, there isn't. Mostly are in dungeons. They haven't respawned, and there's just nothing to do and see. You just, fortunately we found an auto run key after 20 hours of playing, which helped. But otherwise you just got your finger on the W key for like 20 minutes just to go back to somewhere with nothing to do. The game needs some sort of fast travel, or it needs a mount system, or it needs to let you run, sprint. You can sprint till your stamina depletes, which is fine, then it recharges. But the trouble is this burns your maximum stamina. Every time you sprint anywhere, there's a chance that it will reduce your maximum stamina until you've slept and rested. All this means getting about anywhere just hurts the player, and after a while it becomes very, very tiresome. So overall, there are some great things about Outward. I loved the fact that it's co-op, split screen or across the internet with a friend. Really nice feature. That makes the game. Without it, I wouldn't want to play this at all. The developers have had some good ideas on what they want to put into this, and I do applaud that. They've done something a bit different, but I'd love to see them refine it and just make everything play a bit more player friendly if they're going to make a sequel to this, and that would be good to see. There's also some really nice puzzles which require a bit of brain power, and that's missing from a lot of modern role-playing games, so that again is a positive as well. Being able to explore the world and go wherever you want at any time is also nice, and just, you don't have to go into all the dungeons, but it's there to do if you want, and I like that. You're not forced into everything, but you're encouraged to explore, so that's a good feature. And being able to play with traps, either magical traps or just regular tripwire traps and explosive traps and things, that's really good. Another thing on traps though, and I'm going to get into the negatives here, to learn the pressure plate traps, which we found right at the start of the game. I'm pretty sure we found them early. The only trainer that teaches you how to use them is in the last place we went to. I think it's in the desert city. You can go there earlier, but our adventure took us there last, and we couldn't use them right at the end of the game. And that's another problem with those trainers that I mentioned earlier. It drives me mad. And the rest of the negatives are, as I've mentioned, there's too much back and forth with the travelling through empty, pretty dull landscapes. Once you've been through somewhere the first time, it's great, but after that, it's just empty, boring, meaningless travel. Really, really takes away from the game. Quests could definitely be more interesting. The voiceover thing is... It's not a game killer, but it's just a pain in the backside. The player stash system needs to be improved and linked. Either that or give players fast travel. Don't have it make it so you're forcing players just to walk everywhere back and forth just because you're forcing them to. It's just such a game killer, that, for me. Inventory management was a bit of a pain in the arse. There's not enough quick slot buttons to assign all these skills, especially when you have to think that, you know, to cast any spells, if you're a magic user, you have to have 4 out of your, I think, 8 quick slots just for the different runes, and they all require combinations. And the inventory management really, really was a pain for me that I didn't enjoy. So, as I said, I would recommend this for co-op in a flash. It was good fun, really enjoyed playing with the aimless, but I didn't really have much fun when I tried to play this solo. So that really concludes my opinion of Outward. It tried some good new things, and I liked a lot of the ideas of those, but it didn't quite deliver the player experience for me. Alright folks, that's my thoughts on Outward. Please do go and click on the links below if you want to watch me play games like this live on Twitch, or if you'd like to see my entire playthrough of Outward and see what adventures I got up to. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it, and check out a few of these fun moments we had whilst playing the game.
Called Ancient Ruins? I mean...
Yeah,
No!
I was about to say watch out for the spikes. Sorry, I should have left those in there. I'll drop them.
It's fine. Oh!
Whoa!
Pirate!
Let me get behind this guy.
Jones is locker with you. Hey,
Take that!
burn in heavy hellfire. Arr. Oh boy.
Hang on,
He's not
I
impressed.
need to untab.
Oh Jesus! I'm dead.
Dead?
Get away. Run.
I'm going to let him chase me around the table, actually.
Yeah. Do a bit of ring around. He's coming fast, by the way. Just
He
let him
is
burn out.
angry.
Just let him burn out.
Whoa!
Run.
That's an angry, dead, burning ghost pirate.
He is fast too.
I think I'd be fast if my ass was on fire.
Yeah. I mean, he's on fire in 3 different forms. There we go. Now he fell off.
The trick is just not to be too close to her when they set these things off. I love doing crap like this in games.
I mean, they're just waiting for us, like, cross up, like, come on.
Yeah, nothing to see here.
Really?
Watch them run through the only gap in the middle of this.
Oh, believe me, I'm not intending to leave any gaps.
And one just inside the room where we'll wait for them.
I mean, 1. I still have 13 on me. I seem to have assembled all the spike traps. Let me just...
Are you ready for this, chat? This is going to be fun. Right, I'm going to come hurtling down those steps.
Oh god,
Whoa.
no way! Well, the bunch back here just both died immediately.
I took a hit.
And I'm pretty sure she just ripped. Yep, she just ripped too.
That should be enough.
That should be. Just tell me when you charged it, and I'm gonna open the door and say hello to these friendly people.
All good.
Hello, friendly people. Run away.
I think we got him.
I think we got him.